Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it.
Man, I am always amazed by your photographic skills, the shots you get of all sorts of subjects.
Well, thank you. It's a fun hobby.
Yes.
Definitely a fun hobby.
You know what's fantastic?
What's that?
I actually fixed my microphone. I actually did.
There you go.
I did audio technician. I got it going.
That a boy.
That's amazing. I'm always shocked whenever I fix this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a plus thing on the it's good.
I have no interest in wanting to make it fix it when it's not working, and then it'll go, this isn't working, and I'm like, well, now what do I do? And then somehow I managed to fix it. Hey, Rich.
Yes, sir.
You got to move your microphone down a little bit from your nostril. We can hear you breathing.
Down a little bit from my nostril.
There you go. And you know how you like to listen to all the podcasts.
Sure. I listened to the Mike Burgett podcast today. That was exciting for me because I just met him, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, at Dave's place.
And yeah, he dispatched, and I was the train master, so I got to work with him pretty much.
Oh, he was the dispatcher? Now, do you think Dave would ever let me dispatch?
Maybe for a few minutes.
Oops.
That seemed like a pretty positive no.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a total no.
It sounded like a no to me.
It was a qualified no.
Well, was that the first time Mike Burgett's ever operated at Dave's Layout?
Yeah, he had never been there before. He was. It was really, really interesting because as soon as he got there, he started walking around. He would set up routes on the dispatchers on the computer, and then he'd go walk around and see what signals were displayed. And I think Dave and the guys that helped Dave put that whole thing together, definitely impressed Mike with the accuracy of what was displayed.
So here's my point, though. I've operated there now twice. Second time, I operated completely on my own. I had a few questions, but basically managed to stumble my way through the operating session without much help. So I've been there twice. My next trip will be my third time, and he won't let me dispatch, and yet Mike gets to dispatch on his first crack. That something seems uneven somehow. Seems like a very fluid rules.
Yeah, well, I think things do change from time to time.
Yeah, although Mike did write a substantial chapter in the OPSIG book on operations.
Well, yeah, just because the guy runs a whole division. He's the signaling superintendent for a whole division for CNR, and he had a company selling signals, and he's known as one of the signal experts in model railroading.
CPC machines.
Around the world. Would that really qualify him more than me?
Maybe a tiny bit.
Okay. So we've been recording for just over 3 minutes now.
Beautiful.
So, Bruce, the reason we're doing an introduction here.
Okay.
Hi,
I'm Bruce.
Yep, you're Bruce.
Moderately agitated mailboy.
Moderately agitated mailboy. And also joining us in the studio tonight is none other than, well, he's simply known as the Wiz.
Yes.
For those of you who have never had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Wisniewski, his full name is Rich Wisniewski. Is it Wisniewski? I don't care. That's as close as I'm ever getting. Wisniewski.
You just go by Rich.
Yeah. Well, it's important to say your last name too. But anyways, everybody on the AML network knows you as Rich. Which, by the way, Bruce.
Yes.
Did you hear the news?
News. We have news?
We have news.
Should I get the tele? Stand by for breaking news. Stand by for breaking news.
This podcast, which is being broadcast on November the 14th, is on the free channel, on the Monday show. It's a free show. And all going forward, from this point forward, all of our free, anything that's on the AML network that's on the free side is sponsored by Rapido Trains.
Really? Rapido Trains?
Rapido Trains, yeah. Our pal Jason Tron and Rapido Trains.
Great for them. Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
There you go. Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun. I mean, there you go. You come up with all the sayings.
Nah, I get occasional flash of brilliance.
So now from this point forward, we're sponsored. That's our, just like in the Lowe's Motor Speedway in Charlotte, or Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, or Ford Field in Detroit.
Ford Field in Detroit. Comerica Park in Detroit.
They're Comerica Park in Detroit. This is now Modeler's Life, sponsored by Rapido Trains, which of course is if you go on the internet, if you go on the World Wide Web, on the www, and you
Do you
type,
think that will ever catch on?
I'm not sure. The www. Rapido. If you just type in Rapido Train and you go to rapidotrains.com, boom, you are in a wonderland of model railroad products, N scale, HO scale, detail parts, swag. That's what I'm going to do. I haven't told Jason yet, but part of this whole deal is I'm going to try to score some free T-shirts.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Not, I'm working on my.
Now they're going to be Rapido shirts, not the VIA ones he's trying to upload on everybody, are they?
No, I get some VIA ones too.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good. Which
which is actually a point. I noticed you guys probably noticed all the stuff in the studio.
Yeah, it was kind of bulging out into our usual mingling space there.
Yeah, one of the things I agreed to is we're going to paint the studio. We are now in the Rapido Train studio.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it's being painted blue and yellow, or blue and gold.
Blue and yellow. Yellow, blue and yellow.
Is it blue and yellow, or is it blue and gold?
Well, the guy who can answer that question.
Yeah, would be Jason Schron.
Mr. Schron can tell you if it's yellow or gold.
And did I tell you that we're sponsored by Rapido Trains?
You may have mentioned it. You may have mentioned it in passing that Rapido Trains is now our sponsor.
Yeah. Did you get that, Rich?
Understood. Blue and yellow, I think.
Yeah,
Is it?
that's what I think. That's what I think.
Yeah. And
of course, it depends on what paint scheme, because they got sort of a gray and yellow one going too on some of their
true.
stuff, and a greenish and gray and yellow. And
wait till he finds out we have two studios, one in the north and one in the south. Maybe one will be painted one way and one will be painted the other.
Well, there you go.
What was else I was going to say? Oh yeah, and this after.
one of your studios will be .ca, and the other one won't have an extension, right?
So we have extension cords because we got to run them into the plug to power everything.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't. We plug into the neighbor's building. And the other thing, a big giant this afternoon, one of those moving trucks pulled up and it unloaded two VIA passenger seats from old seats from an old passenger coach. Now
Beautiful.
They're down in the lobby. I don't know what we're going to do with those.
That's an awful lot of stairs to bring those up.
Yeah, that's a lot of stairs here on the 48th floor of the McCracken building.
That may be a several-day excursion. That we'll have to schedule like a Salting Mount Everest day when we get. To
Salting Mount Everest. Yeah, there you go.
Day when we get to the 10th floor and pitch camp for the night and continue on.
Well, this is cool. He has these, I see. Well, man, there's all kinds of, I'm not even going to talk about what's on the website right now. And I think Jeremy's working on a jingle. They're going to make jingles.
There you go.
Which, Rich, because you're basically becoming part of the crew, because now you're known as Simply the Wiz, you'll be expected to learn all the words to the jingle.
Oh, really? I thought there was no singing on this podcast.
No, there's some things that they sing. It's the ending. There's no singing, interpretation, dance, or anything.
No, the very ending. Happy Rails to you. There's no singing. There's no dancing. It's simply Happy Rails to you. But that won't be happening on this podcast. Okay, so Bruce, the reason I have I have gathered everybody here tonight is because this podcast is called. This is the first part one of part two of a podcast called What's the Deal with Dave?
Okay, so you said part one of part two.
Yeah, it's part one of two parts.
Oh, part one of two parts. Okay.
Yeah.
I was confused. Well, it's part one of part two, and that means actually part 2A. And
that was one of the things that Jason specified in the contract, is that we had to make sense. And I said, yeah.
You signed that?
No, I did not sign it.
No,
I balked at that.
I think it's a negotiation. That makes sense. Ooh, man.
Yeah. And then the other thing was Rich, your pal, Tom Schmieder. He's my pal too, I guess. He noted that Rapido Trains makes all these beautiful, highly accurate models. And while transparency here is paramount, accuracy is really of no concern to the AML. And he was wondering how the two things would meld together. A company like Rapido Trains, where accuracy is paramount, and with us, accuracy being more of a hindrance than anything else. And
it's like oil and vinegar to make a nice salad dressing. You shake it up and it's perfect.
Well, when I pointed that out to Jason, he just said simply, well, that's not a problem. You just got a restraining order, and none of us are allowed within 100 feet of the premises or can talk to anybody at work.
Problem solved.
Problem solved.
I like that.
Yeah. Just get right to the meat of the deal. All right.
Yeah.
So this is the introduction to part one of What's the Deal with Dave. Okay. And I recorded this show at the Station Inn in Crescent, Pennsylvania. And rather than me try to explain to you exactly what that is, I thought we would bring in the whiz who has the answer to everything to explain it to you, you and the listeners of exactly what that weekend is.
No, was this before or after Bernard Helen had his car vandalized?
No, this is well before. This is actually like I guess it's like 4 months ago, Rich?
Oh, okay.
It was the end of July, yes.
It was the end of July, so it's at August, September, October. Yeah, 3.5 months ago. So, what exactly is this whole thing? What is this weekend, Rich?
The weekend at Crescent is something that Dave has organized for more than 20 years now, where it started off with a small group of folks his own age mostly, and a few parents that went to stay for a long weekend at the Station Inn right after it first opened back in the mid-90s. And while they were there, they met other people, kindred spirits, that ultimately has led to Dave basically taking over the facility for a long weekend every year for many years now. I've been fortunate to have gone for the last 5 years.
It's actually next year in 2023 will be the 30th year.
Well, there you go.
And
that makes sense. That's right, because I think he started in 94.
Yeah, this was yep. And by coincidence, it was around the late 90s, 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly, that I started asking him if I could attend. He wasn't really too keen on the idea back then. It took me about 25 years to convince him that
so you know what that means?
What's that?
That there is hope for you to eventually dispatch the railroad.
Well, there you go.
You just got to wait long enough.
Yeah, exactly. I just got to wait till I'm like 25 years. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I should have to wait as long for this though. So it's basically something that just kind of evolved, and I got a chance to go this year. So it has this beautiful. It's an old. I don't know. It's like 3 stories? Is it 2 stories or 3 stories?
It's basically a 2-story building.
Right.
There's a basement underneath, but that's really a basement, so I call it 2-story. It was built, as I understand it, was built as sort of the station hotel, right? The railroad lodging facility right across the street from the site of the train station in the town. And then at some point over time, it got converted to some call it a rooming house or maybe an apartment building. But that's why each of the suites ended up with its own bathroom as the building was modernized. And then in the early 1990s, Tom Davis, as he was retiring from his career in education, had this concept for lodging for rail fans. Picked this location, picked this building, and brought it up to snuff, and started a very successful rail fan lodging establishment.
Yeah, and I think Dave first saw an ad for it in Rail Pace magazine or something like that.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like I say, it was like a few years after that, maybe 5 or 6, that I started asking him if I could go. But, so anyways, today in this episode, we're going to talk so we're sitting on this. So there's this great porch that's literally like 150, 200 feet from the tracks, maybe 100 feet max. And you sit on this beautiful porch, and there's all kinds of seats. You sit there, and there's even got an intercom there telling you can hear the train guys talking to each other and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there. It's my first time after begging for like 20 plus years. And I'm sitting there, and I had taken my portable recording stuff. And inadvertently said to somebody, I don't know who it was, but I said, "So what's the deal with Dave?" And they started talking, and I went, "Wait a minute, time out. Let me just go get my stuff, my little portable recorder." And so I sat there on the front porch for the next day and a half interviewing people about what's the deal with Dave. And, so we in this particular episode, we talked to Alex Lang, who is now the proud owner of the Station Inn. That's stationinn.com, isn't it? Is that
stationinpa.com.
Station Inn
PA at
PA.
Right, as in Pennsylvania, PA.
So stationinpa.com.
Right.
So station as in station, in as in Ian, INN, and PA as in Pennsylvania.com. So yeah. So I started talking to whoever it was. But in this episode, we talked to Ben Abeleys, Dave's brother. We start out with Ben Abeleys, Dave's brother, and trying to understand what was going on. And we talked to Heath Hoffmeister, who actually happens to work also at New Jersey Transit, along with you, Rich.
That's correct.
Which I'm not 100% sure what you're doing, but we do know for a fact you work there. And
30 years.
Has it been 30 years?
Yeah.
Wow, so pretty much the same amount of time that Dave's been doing this thing at Crescent.
Yes.
Right. And you've been going to Crescent for about 30 years, have you not?
Well, I've been rail fanning in that area for more than 30 years. But my first visit to the station was only 6 years ago.
Have you and Dave ever had conversations about how close you might have been to each other at some point when you were rail fanning and you didn't even know each other yet?
Yeah. We've actually talked about a rail fan trip that we were both on back when he was just a little kid.
Really?
Yeah, back in the 80s. So,
like, did he drive himself or something?
No, I don't recall now whether it was his parents or uncle or somebody took him on the trip, and I was a young volunteer.
Oh, that's right. I remember you telling us that. Yeah, and he was the little kid that kept asking where the washroom was or something.
Yeah, that would have been in the early 1980s.
Yeah, and he was the little kid that was introducing everybody to each other. And you know what?
He was elected the president of the coach that he was riding in.
There you go. And you know what the crazy part is? We've never told this, and I'm not 100% sure you're okay with me telling this in public, but I'm going to take a shot. The crazy part is, at some point during that day, you said to yourself, you turned to the guy beside you that you knew, and you turned in and you went, "What's the deal with that kid?"
Yeah, I didn't know his name was Dave at the time.
Exactly. So anyways, we talked to Ben Abeleys, we talked to Heath Hoffmeister, who also works at New Jersey Transit. We talked to Alex Lang, and then we talked to Joe Davis, who was Tom's brother, the owner of the inn. It was his first time there too. Joe Davis. It was his first year there.
Yeah. I'd never met Joe before. Interesting.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah. And
his son Matt as well.
And Matt, I really enjoyed. Me and Heath and Matt spent a very intense Saturday night. And then that was when I discovered that Tom Schmieder had this incredible ability that every time I finished one Angry Orchard hard cider, another one would magically appear.
Tom's very thoughtful.
Yeah. It was like a bottle would barely be. He had this magical way of changing. And Josh Hollins, how have you known Josh from the Station Inn?
Yeah, I met Josh through Dave's weekend, so I've known him for 5 years. But he and I have similar interests in understanding the big picture of how the Norfolk Southern system is working, and so we end up spending a lot of time on the porch discussing train symbols and originations and things like that. So.
Yeah, so like on the first night, I think it was the first night or the second night, I was sitting between the two of you, and you two guys are rattling off train numbers and everything to each other, and I'm like, finally, after about 20 minutes of this, I go, "What are you guys doing?" And somehow Josh had the ability to keep track of all the trains you had photographed during the day.
His ability is unparalleled when it comes to his memory and recollection of what he's seen.
And I never did understand completely how it was that he knew which trains you had photographed. I'm not sure by that silence. I'm not sure you knew either.
No, right. Other than that, I may have mentioned earlier in the day that trains that I had seen, and he just remembers everything. He works in the transportation industry. I guess we'll probably talk about that. And I think it's a job where a good memory is vital. So
yeah, he's an aircraft or an air traffic
controller, right?
Yeah, which would be, and he's a Vancouver Canucks fan, which I found to be very. I found that to be unnerving at first. I'm like, why am I talking to this guy? All right. So what do you think, Bruce?
I'd be unnerved by talking to a Canucks fan as well.
He kept talking about the Sundin brothers, and I'm thinking, buddy, that era is
time ago.
Yeah, that's come and gone.
That Viking ship has sailed a long time ago.
yeah, and there were no passengers on it. There was no cup on that ship. All right. So does it seem to make sense to you, Bruce? What happened?
Let me get this. Dave started going to place to watch trains. Bunch of people joined him. Kept doing it over and over again. And you got there finally. Were amazed at all the trains. Didn't understand any of it. And kept drinking a lot of cider.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's the way I remember the weekend. Yeah. So that was it, Rich. That's our intro.
Okay.
All right. So are you guys ready?
Doesn't sound so excited about it.
No, I know. Let
me just add, I think one thing for the listeners, it's not simply that the station sits near railroad tracks that makes it special. It's where along the railroad it is. It's on the west slope of the Allegheny Mountains, near the crest of the grade that Norfolk Southern's, all their east-west traffic goes over. And so you see a railroad that's working hard. They still have manned helper or pusher units helping to shove these trains up the grade, and the trains are working. And I think that's one of the things that makes it a special place is the sounds of Crescent.
Yeah, and some of these. So I did most of these recordings sitting on the porch, and in some of them you can plainly hear the train in the background. A train would be going by as we're doing our chit chat. And you can hear the locomotives because it's uphill going east, right?
Correct. Right. Yeah. This is eastbound trains past the inn are working up the grade. Westbound trains are going down. And you can hear them coming for many minutes because they're not moving very fast.
You won't hear it until tomorrow. But tomorrow is Viewer Mail number 98. And our friend Bernard Helen is going to regale us with a story of how he was on his way to Timonium, the train show, because he owns Mini Prints, the finest 3D printing company in the entire world. Would that be a correct statement, Bruce?
No, I would say it'd be up there. Yes, sir. He has an amazing amount of product he puts out, and a fun guy as well.
Yeah, and you know what his HO scale figures are best used for?
HO scale railroads?
Close. They're excellent in scene, like the figures, the details, all the things he makes are excellent in scenes that feature Rapido Trains products.
Well, of course.
Yeah, see how I got that in there?
You did.
I'm just paralyzed with fear that I have to make sure that the Jason.
We're going to have to start watching more NASCAR interviews so we can get it all slipped in.
Yeah,
the old Rapido train GO40 was running real well today, and tacked onto those USRA boxcars. It was a pretty sight.
I know, but I'm like just paralyzed in fear. First off, I never had a podcast before, and which turned out to be a complete debacle because it became way too popular. And now I have an advertiser that I have to keep happy. And, so I'm just paralyzed in fear that somehow I'm going to screw this up as well. It's like, I'm going to have to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can understand the dilemma, right? Because you still want to just be you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because Jason has a great sense of humor. So it fits perfectly and he has a great product. And And yeah, so that's it. All right. So we're done with this introduction. We're going to come back at the end of the interviews, Rich, and we're going to do an outroduction. We're going to wrap the show up. So be ready. Like after we listen to these, takes about an hour and a half to listen to the interviews. So after you're finished listening, like while you're listening, make a sandwich, get a drink, and then we're going to come back and wrap up the show.
No, I thought Rich and I were going down to the local restaurant and get a bucket of chicken.
Well, you can do that too if you want.
Yeah. Do you want us to bring you some back as well?
I wouldn't mind, yeah.
Okay.
But for God's sakes, on these newly painted walls in the Rapido train studio, don't get any grease on that.
No greasy fingerprints.
Yeah.
Ooh. Good point.
We can do that.
We'll have to eat on the bench outside.
Yeah. Which also has been painted blue and yellow. Okay.
Oh, is that why I have these blue and yellow stripes on my back?
Yeah, I told you.
Oh, man. Okay. It's going to take a while to get used to all this.
Oh, it's going to take a while to get used to all this stuff. Are you kidding me? Thank God we only have one sponsor.
Oh, man. Otherwise, you'd really be rattling off names like
hey, do you know what you have to do now, Rich?
I absolutely do.
All right, go for it.
Subway chime, go.
So now I'm sitting with a fella named Ben Abelies. What's the deal with you, Ben?
What is the deal with me? Well, being the younger brother of Dave Abelies, I find myself in this situation once a year at Crescent.
Why are you all sweaty?
I just went for a run and got lost.
Oh yeah, you're the one that did the big Boston marathon.
Yep, did that back in April. So yeah.
Yeah, because Dave was pretty upset that you didn't actually pause for like 5 or 10 seconds to say hi. You just kind of blew by him. Like he made that trip all the way up there.
Yep, and all I saw him for was like 2 seconds, literally.
Yeah, and you didn't even slow down, he says.
No, I gave him I tried to hug him, but it's kind of hard, while running and hugging somebody on the side. But no,
but couldn't you stop for like 5 seconds?
Yeah, I probably could have, but he always puts himself at like mile 20, and that's what they call Heartbreak Hill. So it's basically in the middle of the last big hills. It's like the fourth of 4 big hills on the course. So it's never an ideal time, and there's so many people lining the course, you don't really know exactly where. I didn't know exactly where he was going to be. So
right,
was
he holding up a big sign or something?
Yeah, he was holding up a sign. It was enough for me to notice, but
it wasn't huge.
No, it wasn't huge.
It's kind of a disappointment then, the size of the sign.
Oh yeah,
this is probably why you didn't slow down at all.
Deflated my ego.
You were thinking, oh, my brother Dave's going to have this huge sign when I get there.
Wow, this is disappointing.
And it's like he's taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and going, "Hi, Ben."
Yep. No, it was great that he and a bunch of friends came up to support me. So it was nice.
And how long did it take you to run?
That was back in October, and that was the first time I broke 3 hours. It was like a 2:50, right under 2:59, 2 hours and 59 minutes.
Takes me. And how far do you go?
That's 26.2.
Yeah,
miles.
It takes me 5 days to walk 60 miles. Every year for the last 6 years, I walk from my hospital to my house to raise money for the hospital.
Oh,
it's
great.
60 miles or 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
But it takes me 5 or 6 days to do that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome that you do it, though. That's something I really would like to get into at some point, is doing more charity stuff,
You're right.
So, like, still run, but, just do it for fundraising purposes.
Well, you can't do the one more year fund because I already got that. That's mine.
All right. I'll have to wait another year.
So what's this podcast? I've decided I'm going to call this podcast. What's the deal with Dave?
He has been a train enthusiast ever since I guess he was about 2 years old. It was said that he would go over to a family friend's, Grace and Tom Gosson, and Tom Gosson was a retired engineer for the CNJ, and he would just sit there at Tom Gosson's HO layout and watch the train go around in circles for hours on end, and had an HO scale layout. I broke a couple of the early locomotives, being the younger brother.
How much younger are you?
He was born in January 1977. I was born in July 1979, so we're pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean so the railroad has always been a huge part of the kind of the sibling relationship, because we would go out and watch trains whenever we could.
Right.
Dave gets his driver's license, and it's like newfound independence. We end up out here, for the first time back in summer '94 when he first got his license. So I always kind of tagged along. I was always kind of the farm guy. I mean, I love tractors and farming, and own a small farm now. Dave always was a train guy, you know.
Yeah,
but I always respected and loved trains too.
Because we actually already know all that about the farm stuff from Dave because he talks about you quite a bit.
That's right. Yeah, his OC stuff. Yeah.
Is what?
His OC Onondaga cutoff stuff.
Yeah, but no.
By the way, I love the shirt.
Thanks. I should give you a Modeler's Life shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have one.
That'd be awesome.
It would be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
So are you just the train guy in the fact that Dave is and over?
Yeah, no, I love trains. I'll take a picture of a train if I see it. I'm not going out rail fanning on the weekends.
Right,
I'm not modeling anything.
You're not modeling. To me, I think you are atypical of so many people that are kind of like in the hobby but not in the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been exposed to it your whole life.
Yes.
You have an interest in it.
Yep.
You know, if somebody had a model railroad and they wanted you to come over and operate, you might even do that.
Yep.
You just have that general interest in it, which is what I think makes the hobby as big and vibrant as it is. It's all the guys like you that are...
Exactly.
Completely understand it.
Yes. Yep.
I think more people understand. I think that on the podcast, and I'm assuming you've listened to all the episodes and some of them twice.
Oh, yes. Some 3 times.
Have you listened to any of the ones with Dave?
I did listen. I want to say I did listen to one of them. Sometimes he'll give me a heads up. Hey, I'm on the spot. Or
we actually now have a show on the podcast called Uncle Dave's Fireside Chat.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
I got to check this out.
Yeah,
check it out.
And there's been 5 of them so far.
Excellent.
There's going to be another. He is so popular on the pod. He is probably the most popular person on the podcast.
Well, as you know, he's got a gift with words. He can talk. He's very passionate, very enthusiastic.
And then he became Uncle Dave.
Uncle Dave's Fireside. That is fantastic. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. I got to check that out.
And the other thing is, the first time I went to his house was in February.
Okay.
And people were wanting to know what it was like.
Yeah.
And I was driving home, and it suddenly dawned on me, because I was thinking, how would I describe this? How would I describe this? And I thought to myself, and I'm interested in your opinion. I thought to myself, it suddenly dawned on me, it's like going into the Keebler cookie tree.
Wow, that's an awesome analogy.
Because the house, which is a beautiful old home, well-maintained, kind of old Americana, Main Street, USA.
Yes.
And you're on the outside of it, and then you go in, and then the inside is very similar to the outside. It's older, very older style, but well maintained.
Yep.
Then you kind of go around you're in the kitchen, and then you go and you open up this wooden door, and there's some
and you descend.
Yeah, but the staircase, because the foundation, the walls are so thick.
Yes.
You kind of find yourself descending at kind of a
yeah. Oh yeah. You definitely have to contort yourself to get down in. Yeah.
And then you get to the bottom, and you turn the corner, and there's this unbelievable model railroad.
Yeah.
And you're thinking to yourself, it's exactly like the Keebler cookie tree, because how do they produce all those cookies in that tree?
Exactly right.
How do you have this fantastic model railroad in this house?
It's one of the most efficient uses of space I think I've ever seen. It's amazing how it all came together, when all the people it's brought in. It's fantastic. I mean, when I hear about the operating sessions, it's like my mind's boggled. Just logistically, how do you work it out? How that whole thing. So I've learned a lot just by talking to him casually about the operating sessions. So one of these days, I should probably make it up to it just to observe.
You should do it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm capable of running a train.
Well, he wants me to come by, and I don't think I'm capable either.
Yeah, you have to get qualified.
He has a sense of, he has an energy that I'm thinking, it's just going to blow right by me.
Yeah.
He's perfect for the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, we've hit off this, made this great friendship.
That's awesome.
And
it's
he's perfect for the podcast.
That's fantastic, yeah.
But I can do a whole podcast here of people just talking about Dave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because everybody has their own perspective. Some of the guys here are OC guys, from the operating sessions. Some are just, rail fans that he met out here, or that we met out here during our weekends. And so it's a really interesting collection of people that know Dave from various avenues.
So I'm going to ask you a real tough question. This is actually a tough question.
All right.
Yeah, you ready?
I hope.
You're cocking your eyebrow. I see that. So the podcast is probably listened to on the free channel, probably, I'm guessing, somewhere between 7,500 to 15,000 people. So there's a lot of people that love Dave. He's he's one of the highlights of the podcast. So they hear me talking to him. They hear Dave talking. They hear people say, "Gee, Dave is great," and Dave's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But you're his brother. You've known this guy since he was since you were a baby.
Yeah, since I was a baby, and he was about 3, right?
Yeah. So, can you give us an insight into being Dave's brother?
That's a really good question.
Were some of the questions not so good?
No. They were all good. This one's but by far the one that I have to think the most about. You know,
All right.
Being Dave's younger brother, it was always always felt lucky because we've always been very close. And so I think the fact there's not that much of an age gap between us it certainly kind of helped foster things. And he's always kind of had a mutual interest in the stuff I've had an interest in. I think for a while I was definitely kind of just following him because he was my older brother.
Right, yeah.
And then as time went on, you kind of develop your own, unique hobbies and interests and all that. But there's been that the railroad stuff. It's everybody. Even as his brother, it's like it's Railroad Dave. It's like synonymous. The railroad is synonymous with him and his persona and his kind of just his daily life.
Yeah.
So as his brother, I have a lot to be proud of. He's always been a great mentor. I think his wife Kristen got him a shirt that said "Free Life Coach." That's it. But he, he always, just great guy to bounce ideas off of. Always, the mentorship thing has always been there. He's always taken me under his wing or given me guidance, whether I wanted it or not.
I would imagine it's kind of like you go through life knowing that no matter what situation you get yourself into, you get Dave in your back
exactly
pocket.
Right. And he knows that it's mutual.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. No, very, very, very blessed to to have that relationship. So,
but do you find I basically I've said to him many times, I cancan't keep up with you.
Yeah. It's definitely high energy. He's got his hands in everything. I mean, it's not just the railroad stuff. It's his job being a general superintendent for transit. That's huge in and of itself. But then he's on the board of education in Lebanon. He town planning board. Yeah,
he does too much.
I don't have that much drive or enthusiasm to put my hands in all of that. It would be too much stress for me.
And
but
he does it like you.
He handles it. You're right. It's it's hard to. It's hard to keep on top
it's his calling.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You think? Here's my thought. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the president of New Jersey Transit, don't you?
Yeah, I think he could easily do that if But here's the good thing about Dave. He understands there's a balance between that whole promotion thing, but also just quality of life. He knows to stay or not apply for certain things or stay away from things that he knows are going to.
However, my argument with Dave is he's because your mom and dad were Peace Corps people.
Yes,
which is really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were pretty worldly, the world traveler types. Yeah.
So his mantra is you got to help the human race.
Yep.
So my argument with him when we talk about being president of NGT, I say you can't help the human race if you're going to step back because it's going to be inconvenient for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's great. Yep. No, that's a good call. Good call, though. No, for sure.
So have you been coming to this every single year?
Yes. Yeah, I've been here since 1994, so I think this is our 28th year of the original group. Yeah, 29th. Yeah. So, no, it's been great.
You never missed a year?
Never missed a year, no. I missed some night,
you might only come from one day some years.
Like when my kids were really young, I would come out Friday morning early instead of coming out. Now, I'm back to coming out Thursdays, So.
Yeah, because you live near...
York, Pennsylvania, so about 2 hours and 45 minutes southeast of here.
And you are? What do you do for a living?
I'm a school teacher, middle school teacher.
Oh, yeah, what grade?
Seventh grade social
How do you
studies.
like that?
I love it. It's a unique age. Some people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you doing? How do you do that? But kids at that age, they have a sense of humor that can relate to adults, but at the same time, they still have enthusiasm. Whereas I think that wears off in the later teenage years.
Right.
And it's a crossroads. I mean, that stage of life is a very, very pivotal one. So I feel like I'm where I need to be. And I've taught for 6 years in New Jersey in Millburn, and then bought a small farm. So I do the teaching thing, and then do a little bit of the farming thing. I'm a gentleman farmer, I guess you could say.
Right.
So.
Well, you're certainly a gentleman.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. You as well.
A little sweaty, but
yeah, I'm sweaty. Hey, you caught me. This is unexpected. I didn't think I was going to go for a run around Cambria County and then be interviewed on a podcast.
That's what happens when you're Uncle Dave's brother.
You never know what's going to happen in Crescent.
You got to listen to these.
I will.
You have got to listen.
I will. I got to, especially
if you don't listen to any of the podcasts, I'll send them to you. I'll get Dave to send you a copy because they're on the page. We have 2 shows every week. We have a Monday show, which is free. Mm-hmm. And then we have a show on Tuesday, which you have to pay for.
Okay.
And it's a minimum of $5 a month.
Yeah.
I will send you those. He's only on the paid channel.
Oh, okay.
Uncle Dave's chats.
High-end, oh.
You only get the good stuff on the paid channel.
Yeah, impressive.
So I will send. I'll get him to send you he'll send you your address, and I will email them to you so that you can listen to them.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And that's actually going to be a required, just like with your kids.
Yeah.
This is going to be a required assignment.
Yeah, definitely. No problem.
Yeah, you listen to them in the car.
Yeah.
Put them on your phone.
Yeah, it's great.
So how big is your farm?
It's 17 acres.
What do you have?
Mostly hay, but there's small grain, wheat, corn and soybeans gets rotated. I don't have all the equipment for the corn and the soybeans, but I do all the hay.
Do you have any animals?
Produce, chickens. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandma, Abelise, had a small farm in Jersey and kind of caught the bug there. And my dad and I always helped out on the farm. While Dave was modeling, we were over on the farm. And so, I kind of never lost the passion for it. So the opportunity presented itself back in 2007, and we bought this place. It was a fixer-upper,
I'll bet you.
So
I'll bet
great.
you love it, eh?
Oh, I love it. And I love the old big Farmall International Harvester, McCormick Farmall fan. So I have all antique tractors.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. About 4 or 5 of them. So it's
we
fun.
have a guy that's regular on the podcast. His name is Josh.
Okay.
Bowman, and he has his own. I never met a kid that was. You would have loved this guy. Because he was kind of like, in school he wasn't, he struggled to go through school. And turns out he's a really smart guy, taught himself agricultural repair.
Oh, wow.
Has his own business, building another second shop, owns his own 160-ish acre farm.
Wow.
Outright.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
And be able to do your own work.
And he's in his mid-30s.
Amazing.
So that's where you should get all your stuff fixed.
Definitely.
Now it's in Belleville, Ontario, which is about probably 400 or 500 miles north of you.
Yes, yeah.
So it'd be a bit of a haul.
Minor commute.
Yeah.
nothing to a big truck and a gooseneck trailer can't haul up there.
Exactly. Josh's Ag Repair. So just remember that.
We'll do.
All right. So what words do you have to leave the fans about? What's your favorite story about Dave?
Oh man, there are so many. I would have to say a lot of the favorite stories involving. I would have to go back to the mid '90s, during the waning days of Conrail, and just being trackside on the Lehigh line, Pattenberg Tunnel, those areas. Just like, what do we do? Here we are. He's 17, I'm 15, and we're up at 5 a.m. Get to get sunrise shots at Pattenberg or whatever. So a lot of my most fond memories are trackside with him. More trackside, I would say, for me than the modeling aspect. I remember too.
Right.
Another thing that always pops in my mind. I'm always the early to bed guy, and he always stayed up later than me. Well, he would spend all that time while I was going to sleep. The light in his railroad room would always stay on until 11, 12 o'clock at night, and he'd be doing all this micro detailing stuff. This is back,
Sure,
even when he was in middle school. He was, with his 4x8 sheet of plywood,
Yeah, so you have this fond memories of just hanging out with your brother,
and how does
Dave.
he do it? Why does he do it? How does he do it? All that micro stuff that would be so annoying. The wire, all that stuff that I don't, that's what makes the world go round.
I know.
His skill set was completely different than mine.
I probably have the same sense as you, because in reality, I don't know anything about this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
I know how to talk. I know how to write.
Yeah.
I knew how to build it, but I don't know details at all.
No.
So it's kind of like I have the same sense. I just stand there, and that's probably what you were just happy to stand
there. And then when I remember that when we got the upgrade, and he got his first Bearcat scanner, and that was like, oh, now we got the inside scoop because we can hear the Lehigh dispatcher, and how now we know when all the trains are going to come. This is obviously pre-internet. But no, just it was always exciting. It was always exciting, always an adventure. From getting, almost run down by the Conrail cops out here the first year. I don't know if Dave's ever told you the story of the original ledge story, but that was before there was a legal way to the ledge. And sure enough, there was a large SUV that we heard rumbling up this fire path that we had used. And I guess some engineer had reported that, there's trespassers on the other side of the curb where the ledge is now. And so we ducked into a bush, and this SUV comes screaming by, Conrail police. We're like, oh my, so it's always, we've had our sense of adventure, the angry, we've never had, run-ins with the law or whatever, but we've certainly had some adventures. Some adventures, yes, exactly. So always adventurous, but fondest memories are just the excitement, the passion, and the adventure that we all shared, and have shared.
Perfect.
So.
You're going to have to be on again. This was perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It was unexpected, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, and next time, try not to be as sweaty.
I'll try to clean up next time.
But, you do have the gift of the gab like your brother.
Yeah, it's an Abelese trait, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you're. I guess, you're toned down. I'm worried about his kids.
Oh, yeah. Woo.
I've tried to explain to him that not everybody's going to be Dave Abel.
No, exactly. He's it'll be a process, I'm sure. As it always is.
There's going to be some major battles between him and me. I'm going to stick my nose in when it comes time for them to get his kids to get cell phones.
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah. That's and that time's coming. I mean, his oldest just turned 10. So. And
it's going to be about his daughter. That's going to be because I know he's going to be like, nah, she's never won yet. And I'll be like, no, she should, Dave.
Yeah,
she's a girl.
Yep.
She needs protection.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Classic Dave. Yeah.
Classic
Dave. Uncle Dave.
All right. Thank you very much,
All right.
Ben.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was awesome. But you got to hold the microphone up here.
Okay.
That is the key. And
Okay, I'm looking at our levels here.
Yeah, why are you touching my recording equipment?
Test.
Okay, we're with Heath.
Am I 2 or 1?
You're number 2. You would never be number 1.
Of course not.
Why were you touching the equipment? I feel like this is going to go bad already.
It probably, what we put into the universe, typically we get back. So Lionel,
okay.
Not to flip that on you, but is to say that, what we expect sometimes we get. However, there's also surprises and silver linings. So we'll just run from there. How about?
Don't ever touch my equipment again.
I won't, but it's my media background where, it's like the equivalent of a bright, shiny object. It just can't not.
Right.
And then also just the audio levels since they've...
Right, and if you're concerned about the audio levels, every time you turn your head...
Yeah, that's okay.
And the microphone goes over here.
You don't pull...
That's not really helpful.
Okay, that's not helpful.
Just sit back. You don't have to look at me.
All right, okay,
just look out into the sky.
All right. And
we're on the beautiful front porch of the station Inn.
Lay back, close your eyes.
Owned by Alex Lang and his lovely wife.
And lay back, close your eyes, and think of London.
Well, it's owned by Alex Lang and his lovely wife,
Leah.
And
she is lovely.
And
Alex is too. And
that's what I thought to myself. Alex is lovely.
Alex is lovely. I've thought that from the moment I set eyes on him, which already is taking this in sort of a sideways, awkward direction. But, some of us excel at awkwardness, and what can I say? So what can I tell you?
So this podcast is. I already came up with the title of it. It's going to be It's a podcast on its own.
Okay.
I've interviewed several people that are here this weekend on Dave's. That was Dave's brother said, "Yep."
Yeah, Ben.
That was a typical teacher thing. Yep. As if I needed confirmation about what I've done. Yep. So
yes.
We've interviewed a bunch of people, and the podcast is called "What's the Deal with Dave?"
What's the deal with Dave? Okay, and so you want me to run with that?
Well, that's a start. That's going to be part of the discussion because you're an interesting guy. So there's lots to cover.
You're kind.
Yeah. So when did you first meet Dave?
When did I first meet Dave? I met Dave in January of 1999.
Here's where I'm really confused.
Yes.
The first time I ever met, the first full day that I ever spent time with Uncle Dave.
Yes,
Uncle Dave. Here comes the train the other way.
Oh, excellent. All right.
There's like all kinds of them.
Well, that's why we come here.
That's right.
Lovely Alex and his
wife.
This
one's got
the proprietor
this one
of the place.
Is led by Norfolk Southern and a BNSF.
BNSF.
Unit.
Beautiful.
It's a container. It's an intermodal train.
It's
going the other way.
Nice pumpkin there.
So, look at that.
Yeah.
So okay.
Okay.
Here's where I'm confused.
Okay.
The first full day that I ever spent with Dave in person.
Yes.
The first thing I did was meet him at Somerville Station.
Yes.
One of the stations that he maintains and manages.
Right.
And you were there.
Yes, I was. Wait, was that the first time you met Dave in person?
I met him the day before.
Oh, met him the day before.
But it was the first full day I was ever going to spend with him in person.
Yeah, okay.
And the first thing I did that morning was drive to Somerville Station.
Right.
It was annoying to get into the station.
Oh, yes, it was.
Because of the construction.
Especially with the construction.
There was no direction.
Only gotten worse since.
Yes, and I finally made it in.
Yes.
And there was Dave.
Right.
And there was Heath.
He
said, hey, Meet Heath.
Well, okay, so
And you guys were talking about an employee that you felt like should be replaced
okay.
because she was blaming something about an elevator screw up and blah, blah, blah. And the two of you agreed that she was a pain in the butt.
Yeah, boy, I don't doubt we had that conversation, but I with things work, it's like if it's not mission critical, it gets cleared out of the mind.
Sure.
There's
Well,
too much
we're
else
not
to
really
carry.
going to talk about that anyways.
Good. I would hope not, because
No, that's just what
the
I
least
remember.
interest. So yeah, my relation to this group and to Dave, that's kind of at core. And what's the deal with Dave? And
Well, yeah, but how did you end up working for Dave?
that's a long and interesting story.
Well, it's maybe a long story.
It's
I'll help you decide if it's interesting.
Okay.
Actually, we kind of have a rule here at the old AML network.
okay.
You tell the stories, and then
Right.
when you're finished, we decide whether or not they're interesting.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I mean, the editor is the final teller of the story, which
Yeah.
I would assume
I'm not
is
the editor.
Oh, you're not?
No, it's my podcast.
It's your podcast, so
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
you're the grand poobah.
Yeah,
so,
there you go. I'm the evil overlord.
Right. I don't know. So I did think about this premise of what about Dave?
Right.
Okay, and I had some thoughts to share,
Okay, good.
and I could just jump in there.
Sure, jump right in there.
Are you familiar with Jack Kerouac's On the Road? Significant book. Great American literature from the middle 20th century.
Vaguely.
And it was
Is it
basically
like Charlie Travels
with Charlie's sort of only a lot deeper, more significant, and more groundbreaking. Effectively, you've heard of the Beat Generation, correct?
Sure.
This was sort of the predecessors of the hippies. So these were young people in the 40s and the 50s who sort of were ahead of the curve, kind of thinking about like where's the society going and what's with all these phonies, and let's question the system. And let's live on our own terms and our own ways.
Right.
Okay. And so, sort of the preeminent like artifact of the Beat Generation, and everything that came out of that, which was ultimately the hippies and the revolution in music and revolution in culture, came out of this, and it was Jack Kerouac's book On the Road that really was sort of the touchstone, the driving artifact that like got people thinking. And so I'm going somewhere here, okay?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So if you're familiar with the story, it's the adventures of Sal Paradise and his crazy and fascinating friend Dean Moriarty.
Right.
And so in a sense, I kind of feel like my relation to Dave is I'm Sal Paradise, and he's sort of the Dean Moriarty.
So Dave is your sidekick?
No, more. I think we're all Dave's sidekick.
Okay.
And so I've got a quote here.
Well, I thought Sal Paradise was the main character.
Well, he was, but kind of like the main character is Nick in The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby's not about Nick. He's the wallflower who's sort of watching all of this and describing it. It's really about about Great Gatsby. So too, On the Road's really about the adventures, misadventures, and maturation of Dean Moriarty. So I'm going to share a quote with you here.
So Dave is Dean.
Dave is Dean.
Dave's your sidekick.
No, I'm Dave's sidekick, like the rest of we are. So it's a quote from On the Road. But then they danced down the streets like dingle dotties, and I shambled after them as I've been doing all my life after people who interest me. Because the only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time, the ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars. In the middle, you see the blue center light pop, and everybody goes, ah. Okay, so that's trippy, yeah, but in a sense,
that's trippy.
Dave is that Roman candle exploding. He's this like energy and this passion that sort of draws everybody's attention and gets people like excited with the passion of life.
Right.
He's like, where Dave is, that's where the party is. And it's not a deliberate thing on his part. It's just sort of his nature. And we're all drawn to it. We're all drawn to that fantastic light of life and energy and perspective and circumspection like moths to a candle flame. And so in a sense, it's like I, like so many in this group, just sort of got drawn in by that light. And he's an embracing guy who just makes, the more the merrier. He welcomes everybody to the party. He's a grouper. And so we get grouped in, and we're better for it. So in a sense, then, he's out there. He's alive. He's got this light about him, and we're drawn in, and we're just kind of lucky to be along on the ride.
Okay, so that's how you ended up working for him, was because he drew you in?
Well, he and I did a lot of traveling, which is part of where the on-the-road thing comes in.
Oh, you and him did a lot of traveling?
We did a lot of traveling. So, okay, so back to, now that we kind of done this
thing,
literary illusions, etc.
Yeah. I think you may be the first person that's ever quoted literature on the podcast.
Wow. Okay. Well, and
we're not that.
I may be the last.
Yeah, you could
and
be.
It might end up on the editing floor, and I can understand. I have to make decisions too. But
do you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do some editing.
Do you?
Yeah.
We're going to get into that.
Will we? Okay. Well, anyway. So back to the original story. So it was 1999. It was spring of 98, and
right.
I had moved up to Pennsylvania from Texas. For a variety of reasons. And looking for a social life, started to hang out at Millersville University.
Miller's what?
Millersville University.
Okay.
I wasn't a student there yet, but was looking to transfer. Wouldn't
today you be arrested for doing that?
Well, that's a good point, but I was the right age. I wasn't.
Okay.
So, yes, I as a 45, 46 almost year old hanging out among college students. In this day and age, but that probably wouldn't be received well. But
No.
I was that age, and so I used to hang out at the Newman House, the Catholic Student Center, which just tells you how cool I was. Well, I was this oddball, kind of a seagull from Kansas, and in those days I had long hair and wore flannel shirts.
I thought it was Texas.
I was originally from Texas, yes, but I was in Pennsylvania.
How did Kansas get involved?
Well, the term of seagull from Kansas, or seagull in Kansas, landlocked. Don't get many seagulls there. You do have seagulls in Texas because you've got the Gulf of Mexico. So a seagull from Texas makes more sense.
Oh, that's pretty deep.
Well, yeah, you're right. I should have more beer.
Yeah.
Regardless. So I'm there, this oddball, and this tall, affable guy comes up, starts chatting with me. We're waiting in line to have the Wednesday night dinner that they always serve to poor students. And that night it was like grilled cheese and tomato soup.
So time out.
Yes.
You say a tall, affable guy came up to chat with you, so I know it wasn't Dave, because
No.
Dave is not tall. He's midget-like.
He's not midget-like. He's average height.
He is not average height.
He would have been
smaller than average.
He would have been the right height for an astronaut in the early 1960s.
He'd be right height for a fighter pilot.
That too. So
He'd make an excellent fighter pilot.
Without question. So
who's this tall, mysterious character that?
So this guy introduces himself as Ben Ableys, and we get to talking. And this is the only person who's really talked to me in this group because I'm sort of an oddball. And again, this is a Catholic student group. So you're already you're already in conservative central Pennsylvania, but then you go even deeper conservative than that with Catholics in central Pennsylvania. And I'm this long-haired, kind of hippie-ish looking guy. They didn't know what to do with me. But Ben, as any good Ableys will do, will make conversation with anybody and started to chat. And so before we knew it, we were talking about tractors, and we were talking about farming, and we were talking about trains that came up too. And by the end of supper, he's like, "You've got to meet my brother Dave. I think you two would hit it off." It's the first Ableys I'd ever met, got to chatting, and Ben and I became great friends and still are. But even that first conversation is like, "You got to meet my brother Dave." So
Got to meet Dave.
Fast forward to January of 1999.
At that point, it would have been an ideal opportunity for you to say to Ben, "Well, what's the deal with Dave?"
That would have been really good. And that I just wasn't quick enough on the draw that day, or even in this interview. But regardless. Clever. Nice tie-in. Segue. So I met Dave January 1999. At the time, they had this college band, and they would play. They called themselves the Ridgewoods. Were they the Ridgewoods in those days? Yes.
I thought they were Strange River.
Well, that was later. That was a smaller group.
Okay.
And I, at the time, lived on this agricultural property, which is what brought me to Pennsylvania. I was managing a farm, a non-operating farm, but a farm for my uncle. who lived overseas. And so I lived in this big old red brick Victorian farmhouse on top of a hill. Looked like something out of Scooby-Doo. And there were 20 acres at the time. And then later on, my uncle then acquired the 100-acre property next door. And so that is how I paid for college, was like managing this property and these buildings. And so I had a lot of space, and Ben was great. And it's like, you guys have a band? Well, why don't you guys stay at the farm? So they came out and played a gig that weekend and met a good number of these guys who are out here this weekend. And they just felt like family from the get-go.
Right.
And Ben was right. Dave and I hit it off, had a lot in common. And so
he's like a brother.
He's like a brother. And so I do consider him to be what I describe as a soul brother.
Yeah.
A brother of the soul.
I'm getting sick of people telling me he's like a brother, to be honest with you.
And this is kind of, I can believe that, but there's a lineage to that because I've come to know the Ableys family pretty well.
Okay.
And I know a lot about their family history because I made, for hire, I made a family history video for them. So I actually know their family history stories better than they do. For hire. His dad paid me to do this. The great Peter Ableys. And so I did a sit-down interview with Dave and Peter, the late Peter Ableys, and the late Bobby Blum, who's a cousin of Peter Ableys, and they told family stories. And then I spent the next 2 years of my life editing this into a 2-volume set.
Holy mackerel, how long was it?
It's 2 hours, so 2 volumes. It's
took you a year per hour?
Well, I also had a massive computer failure. But there's also, there's a lot of editing to it. There was B-roll footage of places in Newark where they'd grown up. Had to work pictures into it, and I also was working full time at the same time. So this was like evenings and weekends, and this was before I had kids. So, regardless, so I know the history well, and so Dave and his ability to group is actually an attribute that he inherited from his great aunt Sarah, Sarah Ableys, who back in the 1920s. Created this whole summer camp program among the kids that lived in their community in Newark, and built a summer camp in upstate New York. And it was this whole thing. It was like with Sarah, the more people, the better. The more people she could include, she would draw in and involve. And this was famous, Aunt Sarah. And so Dave shares that in common with her, where it's just this instinct to sort of group people together, gather them, to find people's interests and connect them with one another. And it's a gift, but it also is a gift that builds community. Sure. So you've got that aspect of it. But then it's also Dave's late mother, Susie Dean, Susie then become Susie Ableys. Not to be confused with his daughter, who is named in her honor.
Right.
Susie was one of those people who just could connect with anybody. And I never had the privilege to meet Susie, but I've learned about her, obviously, by spending time with Dave and Ben and hearing their stories. So I feel like I've met her. But she was one that everybody considered to be their best friend.
Okay.
Because she connected with them like that. And that's another thing that both Ben and Dave share with their mother. Their ability to just make that soulful connection with people that is transformative for those people that meet them. And so, this being said, there's a magic both of them carry. But Dave and his interests and the communities that those interests entail just really has expanded it, where it's we talk about, I know you focus on model railroading. Yeah. That's one community. We're here on the porch of the Station Inn in Crescent. This is another community. There's, that he has. There's music stuff he does. That's another community. There's a community at work. It's like everywhere this guy goes, he just creates this atmosphere of connection and community, and it's a beautiful thing, especially in this era where there's such there's such social isolation that people feel, and this is even pre-pandemic.
Right.
I would argue that consumer culture kind of drives us to become insular, so that we think more about what it is that we want to buy next, and it's the antithesis of community.
What do you want to buy next?
Nothing. I have too much stuff as it is. I have too damn much stuff. So, I'm just trying to maintain what I have.
Right.
How about yourself?
I'm thinking about buying a new driver for my golf clubs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a productive thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
I know nothing about golf, but I really admire it, and I know that it's one of those, like...
And I'm also thinking about buying a new direct drive steering wheel for my iRacing.
Oh, okay.
It's online simulated racing, and I'm thinking about because I do pretty good, but
Yeah.
I'm just like if I get into the division with the top drivers,
Right.
I can keep up, but I can't get by them, and I think it's because my equipment is not necessarily cheap, but it's not top level.
Right.
So I think it's the input isn't quite right. So when I go around the turn, I think I'm scuffing a bit too much off the tires in order to take over, or to surpass them.
Far out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Improvements.
Yeah.
And again, hobbies kind of lead to like stuff.
And I'm always looking to improve the audio on the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking on Sennheiser microphones. I mean, that's
Yeah.
no slouch. That's
What kind of microphone?
Well, I
Did you say Sennheiser?
Sennheiser. Thank you. Yes. For
What do you think you're holding?
well, that is what I'm holding. Is it not? It's not a realistic, is it?
It's no.
No.
These are quality microphones.
They are quality. I don't doubt that. I would expect no less from you.
So are you a model? You're not a model railroader, then?
I am not a model railroader. I admire model railroading. I grew up in a family that model railroaded.
Are you a rail fan?
I do like trains. So I would have to answer
Are you a rail
yes.
fan?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say yes.
Not an avid rail fan, but
Not an avid rail fan. And so that kind of goes back to Travels with Dave.
travels
So,
with Dave, yeah.
again, I grew up in a family that appreciated trains.
I find Dave wears me out.
He's exhausting. He's
He
an
is.
intense dude.
He is exhausting.
He's an intense dude. He's a hard one to keep up with. So
It is. He is.
So,
I've kind of learned to go, sure, Dave, you go ahead. I'll meet you there.
well, right, exactly. I mean, it's like there's so much energy compressed into one person.
Yeah.
I don't know when he sleeps.
I'm already getting ready to have discussions with him about his kids, about telling him not everybody's going to be Dave Abelys.
That's probably a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah, I think so.
And really the world can only hold one Dave Abelys.
Exactly.
I think if there were two Dave Abelys,
if we're not careful, there's going to be much hand-wringing and disappointment on Dave's part because they're not like Dave.
well, and can anyone be like Dave? There's
I don't
only
think
one.
so.
There's
That's
only
right.
one.
There's only one Wayne Gretzky.
Exactly. So, and as
Let's get back to the crux of this.
yes.
How did you, when I walked into the Somerville station,
Right.
hi, this is Heath.
Right.
He's the guy that manages the Raritan line and what else do you do?
Okay, so Raritan Valley Line, and in those at that time actually, I also co-managed the Northeast Corridor, the stations on that, and then was sort of involved also with other stations on Newark Division. So that would be Atlantic City Line and also the North Jersey Coast Line. Since that visit, there's been some reorganization, and so I've basically been told to just focus on the Raritan Valley Line.
Okay.
And we got some new people hired into our management team, so there's more people to spread the load around.
Right.
Although I liked the activity of being involved with multiple lines, so it's taken a little getting used to for me.
Did you notice a pay cut?
No.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's true, but I like to be useful. I like to.
Well, maybe just concentrate on the Raritan line.
Well, and
so how
that's-
did you get that job?
Okay,
Like,
so-
were you sucking up to Dave?
No. I mean, that's a fair question.
It is.
It is a fair question.
Because I was actually quite surprised to see you here.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking to myself, that guy actually works for Dave.
So you
That guy could actually be fired by Dave.
that's true. I could.
That guy could actually get yelled at by Dave, and
That's a possibility too.
Yeah.
And so, you cut to an important point, and this is where there's sort of I don't know, a blurring of boundaries sometimes. So Dave and I became good friends, and we took multiple trans-American trips. Basically traveling across the country, tent camping, living out of a van, following the railroads, taking pictures, philosophizing. And it was great. Became obviously very good friends. After I finished college, I worked in television and film for about a decade. I worked in New York City. And when my wife and I were expecting our first child, I realized that my career freelancing, particularly where I was responsible for my own benefits, wasn't going to really cut it with the start of a family. And so I began to really look at other options with, we'll say, more stable employment. And I looked at lots of different things. And it so happened that that a mutual friend of Dave and mine, Jack, you've probably heard of Jack.
Jack Trabacino.
Yep.
He never wears blue jeans, eh?
He never does.
No,
never
it's
has.
strictly khakis.
Never will.
Yeah.
That's just part of Jack.
Yeah.
That's a code of Jack.
Yeah.
He saw an opening in the light rail division at New Jersey Transit for a communications coordinator. So he sent this to me and said, "Hey, you might apply." And given my background in communication, it's like, okay. So I applied and ultimately was offered the job, which interestingly, on this day, July 30th, 10 years ago, 2012, was my first day at New Jersey Transit. I reported to the head of light rail and began my job and my career at New Jersey Transit. And so my job in those days I was the interface between light rail operations and our public information department.
Okay.
So when something screwed up in operations, they would call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It wasn't a stressful job at all. I had to be accountable to that phone always. Anytime anything went wrong with light rail that would impact our customers and their travels, I was the one contacted. I needed to collect the information, compress it into a concise message that then could be passed on to our public information department to then be distributed to our customers.
You don't seem like a concise and compressed guy.
I can be when I have to be. I'm a storyteller at heart, and to me, the broader and more wide-ranging the story, the richer it is. But when I have to, I can be concise.
All right. Well, then we got to get to the end of this.
Right. So, worked in light rail. It was an awful job. I hated it. After about 6 months, wanted out. But it was providing well for my wife and my newborn child. And I looked for other opportunities in transit. And eventually an opening came up in the stations department, which at the time Dave was not head of, but was the assistant to the head, and basically said, "Hey, why don't you put in Heath?" And again, yes, he and I were friends, obviously, but and he was forthcoming to his superior about that. So his superior interviewed me, and others who didn't know me interviewed me. And ultimately, they hired me to be a supervisor of stations, in large part, because of my experiences managing my uncle's farm in Pennsylvania.
Sure.
That was the background.
It's a natural.
Right, exactly. And I've been there since. So, we have to kind of, there's a definite division between professional life and then friendship life, Dave and I. So it's a balancing act. But, we seem to have been able to make it work thus far. But, we philosophize a lot. And I'm also kind of able to give him sort of perspectives from the trenches.
Right.
That people share with me, which he finds helpful.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
In a long roundabout way.
Yeah.
I would think you'd like to sit and talk for a couple hours.
Oh, that's But that's you're going to have to condense this for time.
I would think so.
Okay.
Or it may not. It might be pretty interesting just the way it is.
Maybe so.
Maybe What's the Deal with Dave will become a two-parter.
It could be.
There you go.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, what is the deal with Dave? Is he's this
See, here's my
multifaceted guy.
Here's my problem.
What's your problem?
And I know Rich will listen to this. I know Dave will listen to this.
Right.
But my interaction with Dave began about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And because of the way Dave is and how he interacts with everybody, I'm basically becoming sick of him.
That does happen. People kind of saturate with Dave, and that's okay.
So what do you think? How do I overcome that?
You kind of have to measure out exposures to Dave. It's like
Is it like the sun? Is that what I'm missing? Is he like the sun? And if you get too close, you'll be vaporized.
You could get cooked. Yeah. It's true. So you just put on your sunscreen, take a break.
Okay.
It's like being at the beach.
All right.
That's a good way to analogy.
So how do you think our first interview went, Josh? Can I call you Josh?
You can call me Josh. I've got close friends who are.
So what's your last name is
Hoffmeister? Yes,
That's
Hoffmeister.
quite a handle you got there, Heath
I
Hoffmeister.
know. I'm not going to change it.
No,
I'm not going
I
to
wouldn't change it. It's very unique.
It is. People remember it,
Yeah.
which is good. So,
And what's your YouTube channel with your mower meditations?
Okay, so I've got a YouTube channel called Mower Meditations, and this is basically it's essays about modern life and the conundrums of modern life and modern masculinity.
Modern masculinity.
Yes.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, and so I've got about 15 episodes at this point, and they sort of explore all manner of topics from project car restoration to music playing over the loudspeakers at grocery stores to rude drivers to struggles in marriage. I kind of cover the gamut. And so the central character is this guy named Hank who's mowing his lawn.
Okay.
And that's the visual is Hank mowing his lawn, which is me. Hank's kind of an alter ego. And then you hear this voiceover of his thoughts, which are these essays.
Are they really long?
They range between 3 and 7 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
I hope not.
That's the key. If you make them too long.
Oh, I know. And so some go a little far. I try to avoid politics. I try to just kind of ask the big questions of this whole business of being human and the human condition and what is it to be and where are we trying to go? So Mower Meditations. And
Where are we trying to go?
Mower Meditations. We got to. Yeah, it's not medications, but meditations or mediations either. I've misspelled this many times.
All right.
I like words, but I'm not very.
So what is it? Med, M-E-D.
I think.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
T-A-T-I-O-N.
All right, you're under here. I'm doing this while we're talking.
Okay, I'm impressed as your ability to multitask.
So is that correct?
Mower Meditations. I think so. How's that for concise? So yes, there we go. There's an episode.
Right here.
Not the top one, but this other one.
Oh,
So there
okay.
we go. Mower Meditations, and there we go. So yeah, it's Mower Meditations, and
There's a disclaimer.
there is a disclaimer on some of them. Some of the ones where I kind of push the edge a little bit. So yeah, it's food for thought. I currently have 23 subscribers, so that makes me pretty popular. I'm always interested in more. Because there's something to offer. But
So that's a fascinating thing I find about today's social media, which is on the one hand, I don't know how else to describe it other than my podcast is very, very popular with the people that listen to it.
So
What is it that keeps driving you? Is it because you're doing it strictly for yourself?
I just keep having ideas, and so I
Right.
put them out there. And
Right.
I probably don't leverage getting the social media out there like I should.
Okay.
Which I'd be certainly open to suggestions from knowledgeable people.
Right.
So, it's, again, I mean, it's more just people who know me, and I don't know. I guess that's the thing, I haven't locked into that, how to get followers organically. So, and it's also, I take long hiatuses, so I'm not delivering weekly. It's
Right. That's the thing you got to do is you got to put it on a regular,
and
like
that's
once every 2 weeks, once
Right.
a month.
Right.
So people can look forward to it. Because
That's-
the number one rule I learned in podcasting
Yes.
was somebody said to me, when Seinfeld on? Oh, Thursday at 9. So every Monday and
Okay.
every Tuesday,
Right.
a podcast comes out at 2:30 a.m.
Okay. There you go. All right. This
So
is
it's
helpful to know.
all so they can look forward to it.
Okay. Good call.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
What you need to do with mower meditation.
Mower meditations. That's the missing
You
link.
could do 7 or 8 or 10 minutes,
Right.
but break it into 2 or 3 segments,
Interesting. Okay.
and then boom, you start putting them out regular.
There you go. Okay. No,
right.
I appreciate that. Well,
So I think, how do you think this went, Heath? Pretty good.
I'm long-winded, and
Yeah,
you've been
you are,
really
very
patient.
much.
I hope that you've gotten some material that you can use that might be interesting
think
and
we got a lot of
insightful.
good material
Good.
I can use.
Okay, excellent. Well, and it's a humble honor to be able to.
So what did we decide is the deal with Dave? He's just this Roman candle.
He's this Roman candle. He's this
That just-
fascinating, multifaceted individual who just has this amazing ability to connect with all kinds of people.
Yeah, a unique kind of intensity.
It's true, and that's the thing. Is he's so filled with enthusiasm for life and all around him, and it's so contagious that you just can't help but feel uplifted by time spent with him. And again,
Yeah.
that's where your friendship with him has been an important thing, that there's there's a gruff realism to you that he needs, and that was something that his late father delivered to him in spades. And that none of the rest of us are able to deliver, but you are able to. And with your perspective and wisdom, you've become a real wisdom keeper for him. And
that's a huge honor.
Well, it is.
It's a huge responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. But it's like, he tells me about some of the conversations you all have, and it's like, Lionel is able to deliver the message that none of the rest of us can. So keep doing what you're doing. Just wear your sunscreen. Don't get too close to that candle.
So when is Dave going to be the president of New Jersey Transit?
Oh, and you bring up an excellent question, and it's one that he and I have discussed a lot, because there's another core to Dave is that he's an inherently a good Boy Scout and wants to be of good service. And so the Boy Scout in him wants to continue to advance and to promotion, to be able to create that sense of community he creates everywhere else. And I can attest to this as an employee in his department. The sense of community and teamship that we have is remarkable. And what we're able to do with a small group of people is fantastic. And a lot of it is his vision and his enthusiasm and his empowering of people to do their jobs well. That being said, he thinks about, if he were in a higher position, would he have that effect? But at what cost?
But see, that's the thing. You can't draw the line. You can't say my loyalty is to the human race and go, oh well, that's too difficult.
Well, but
see, then you're
right.
just an also ran. Then you're just another player.
Yeah, although it's like it would come at the cost to what?
No,
what is? Well,
if he's good at doing his job now, he'll be good at doing that job too.
Right. That phone will never stop ringing, though. And the time that he would have for...
Why wouldn't he have other Heaths? Why wouldn't there be other Heaths?
That's a good point.
How often do you call him? Hardly ever.
Not often.
Exactly, because
there's
your job is to run the Raritan Valley line.
Correct.
Not to call Dave.
Right, exactly. And there's other people I call.
Exactly.
Because I'm, a couple, there's several layers of management between him and me. So we just discussed philosophy.
That wouldn't go over that well. So next time I'm around hanging out at Somerville Station, which is where your office is.
Right, it is.
And you see me and Dave's nowhere around, and I get on the train without buying a ticket, are you going to report me?
No. Why would I do that?
Well, because I snuck on the train.
That's true, but the conductor will catch you. So it would be redundant for me to report you, because you're going to have to deal with the conductor, and hopefully you meet somebody nice.
All right.
But they'll still charge you the $5 surcharge for for buying the ticket on board. So just come talk to me first, and I could talk to the conductor for you. Exactly. So
all right, we're done, Heath.
Knock on the window and say hi next time you're at the station.
Heath,
and
help me.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Say goodbye, Heath.
Goodbye, Heath. Goodbye, Lionel.
Okay, so now I'm sitting here with Josh. What's your last name, Josh?
Hollins.
Josh Hollins?
Yes.
H-O...
Think of the Dutch state Holland with an S at the end.
Okay, that's a pretty cool name, Josh Hollins.
Yes.
You could be like a right winger for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh, I'm not sure I would go that far, but that would be interesting to be a pro hockey player.
So, Josh, we're doing a podcast that's called "What's the Deal with Dave?"
Okay.
How long have you known Dave?
I've known Dave since 2015. That was my first time I was out here on this summer trip. I've been rail fanning long before that, but 2015 was the first year I was able to be invited to the gathering here at the station.
How did you meet him?
It was through a mutual friend. My mutual friend and I, the mutual friend being Roman, we did a lot of train logging, and he had been to this event previous with his father. So I asked Roman, hey, if it's fine, is there a way I can get to this gathering? And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting invited out here.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So now you've been dealing with Dave now for 7 years?
Thereabouts, yes. There was 1 year I missed, but been dealing with him the rest of the time, yes.
So what's the deal with Dave?
Oh, I love Dave.
Everybody loves Dave.
Everybody loves
I'm actually
Dave.
getting sick of that.
You can't hate Dave. With his model railroad layout and then his love for the Rio Grande railroad out in Colorado and Utah.
Which makes no sense to me.
Well, it's a mountain railroad, just like the railroad that we're sitting right next to here is a mountain railroad. Now, granted, the mountain railroad here only goes up to about 2,100 feet, whereas the Rio Grande went up to about close to 10,000 feet.
Yeah, so this is more like a hill railroad.
Yes, this is a bunny hill railroad compared to the actual mountains in the west.
And so, are you a modeler or just a rail fan?
I'm more of a rail fan. I learned early on with model railroading that you always never have enough money, never enough time, or never enough space. And they're all mutually exclusive, meaning that something always comes up that prevents you from doing so. And for me, it's the time and space that has precluded me from really seriously diving into it. So I do more of the rail fanning itself, watching the operations.
And would you say that's your main hobby, rail fanning?
That's one of the main ones. I'm a big sports fan as well. So between sports and rail fanning, that pretty much takes the cake right there.
And whereabouts do you live?
I live in Virginia near Manassas, so that's just outside of Washington, D.C.
So then I would assume that your hockey team is the Washington Capitals.
You would think so.
It would make sense.
It would make sense. That was the team that got me started watching hockey when they made their cup run back in the late 90s, but they fell on hard times. I was trying to figure out a team I wanted to watch, I could become a true fan of, and shockingly for you, it ended up being the Vancouver Canucks during their West Coast Express years that got me hooked on that team. So I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan.
Well, at least you're not an Ottawa Senators fan.
That's true, yes. I am not an Ottawa fan.
So what do you do for a living?
So I am an air traffic controller.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is it a stressful job?
If you let the stress get to you, yes, it can be stressful. I actually find it exciting. You have to have that hyper focus for the job, but I also know that I am basically moving people and goods around the country, so I know that I am doing my part to keep the country moving.
So you're an air traffic controller for Washington or for general area?
So my facility works the airspace, the what we call the approach and departure phases of the flights departing out of all the Baltimore, Washington Metroplex airports. And that also includes Richmond, Virginia, and Charlottesville. Richmond and Charlottesville are the two main airports that are my focus.
So you must handle planes going into BWI?
On occasion, I do. If the weather's bad, they'll come through my airspace, and then instead of being on a set arrival, they're deviating around weather. So we kind of let the planes give them a little latitude in terms of which way they want to go, and then get them on their way around these storms without too much delay.
So have you ever talked to a pilot from Southwest?
Yes, I have talked to a pilot from Southwest before.
And has any pilot that you've ever talked to that works for Southwest, have they ever mentioned Tracy Boyd? She's the official flight attendant of the AML network.
I have not heard any pilot mention her.
Oh, that's kind of a shocker, isn't it?
It is.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what are you doing tomorrow? Are you going to do some more rail? Today is Saturday. Tomorrow's the last day of the weekend.
Yep.
Are you going to do some more rail fanning?
I'll do some rail fanning in the morning. It's about 3 hours back home, so I'll do a little rail fanning, but then get on going. My girlfriend is waiting for me back home. So,
oh, that's nice.
Yes. So,
what's her name?
Her name is Caitlin.
Oh, okay.
So
hi to Caitlin.
Yes, hi, Caitlin.
Okay, cool. All right. So the deal with Dave is he's just a nice guy.
Yes, he's a very nice guy.
Okay. He's like a brother.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of that too. Say goodbye, Josh.
Alrighty. Goodbye.
Josh. Say goodbye, Josh.
Goodbye.
Josh.
Yes.
Say goodbye, Josh.
Goodbye, Josh.
There you go. Attaboy.
There we go.
So now I'm sitting here with Joe Davis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And your brother was the former owner of the Station Inn?
He was.
For how many years?
Started in 93 and checked out in 2021. So what's that, 21 and 7? 28 years.
28 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And how long how long have you known of Dave and his gang coming here?
I got invited by my brother to join him and a couple of other guys to go on a trip to China and chase steam engines across China and Mongolia in 2005. And Brother Abelese was one of the people on that trip along with his father.
Right.
And it was a hoot, and I got to know him in that way. And then over the years, always hearing from Tom about the Abelese group is coming back to the inn. You know, you ought to come join us. So this is the first opportunity I've had to experience Dave and his
really? This is your first time?
Yeah. Well, with this group, yeah.
With this group, yeah. How come you waited this long?
I'd never been invited before.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Wow. So what's the deal with Dave?
Well, that's God only knows.
I can't believe he never invited you until now.
Well, we got to know each other a little bit a couple of months ago when we had the memorial service for Tom, and I was surprised. You know, here comes an email, and he had sent it out to all the group guys, and he included my son and myself on it, and I really kind of felt tickled, kind of honored to be invited to something like that, and I was hesitant to take it. Because I knew maybe we would be bumping out regulars, and I didn't want that to happen. But, you know, what's with Dave is that he just is, he has certain passions, and he just seems to enjoy life, first of all, and certainly trains and every aspect of railroading. And I don't know, he has a great family. He's into... school activities. He just is, he's into it. He's into things that make a difference in a lot of people's lives, I should say. And he's just a great guy to know.
He is. He's just a great guy to know. But we got to figure out what the deal with Dave is.
Well.
Maybe it's just that he's a great guy to know.
No. There's.
Have you met anybody more enthusiastic than Dave?
About what? Trains?
About anything. Here comes some helpers. As we're sitting here right this minute, here comes some helpers.
Yeah.
A couple of units going by. 2 Norfolk Southern units, 7236 and 7254. Just went by because the station in faces the main line, the Norfolk Southern's main line. It's kind of romantic, isn't it?
Let's not get carried away.
Okay.
If you'd run a steam locomotive down here, I'd say we could romanticize about that. But yeah, no, I think for serious railroaders, anything that you get rolling on these rails is kind of a romantic thing.
I heard you got sick on that China trip.
No, I don't. You know, I've heard this story. I don't know of anyone who got sick on the China trip.
Oh, okay.
So I don't. Wherever that's coming from.
That's Dave told me that.
What the hell does Dave know?
Exactly.
You know? So maybe that's what's up with Dave. He tells stories.
Yeah, maybe that's up what's with Dave.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll come back next year to Dave's shindig?
We'll have to see if we get invited. But
that's true.
If we're invited, I would think the answer would be yes. But I also know that there were some regulars who weren't able to make it this year because of the scheduling.
Right.
And if they want to make it next year, there may not be room at the inn.
That's true.
Now, we could find a manger and put it out back, and my son and I could sleep in a manger. We're not worthy of that, you understand, but...
Did your son come with you?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He's here.
So it's his first time as well?
Being with this group, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I'm assuming you've been here many, many times.
Yes, sir, we have.
I bet you have. Well, I just thought I'd stop and have a talk with Tom's brother, Joe. Okay. And what's your favorite memory of the inn? Of all the things that you've ever done coming to the inn, what's your favorite memory?
I suppose the first night that Tom stayed here.
Really?
Yeah, and we got fairly well into some beer that was downstairs, and we wound up spending the night on the floor in the common room the first night he owned the place. And, you know, that's always kind of special just because it was the first night. But I've met here a number of times. We have relatives out of Baltimore and out of York, Pennsylvania, and we've had family get-togethers here.
So where's home base for you?
St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis.
Yeah.
So you came quite a ways.
Well, yeah.
You fly or drive?
No, we drove.
How long did it take you?
About 18 hours because
Okay.
we drove the back roads through West Virginia and Maryland and,
Just had a good time.
Yeah, we stayed off the interstates basically.
So are you heading home tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll hit the interstates. It's an 11-hour, I'm sorry, it's a 10-hour drive on the interstates.
Oh, okay.
So 725 miles.
All right.
That's it.
It's like half the distance to my house. I'm only like 350 miles
Yeah.
from here. And I took the back way most of the way. Anyways, it's great to meet you, Joe. Glad to have you on the podcast.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So we'll continue on with the next person because we got to find out
what's up with Dave.
What's
I don't
the
know.
deal with Dave? Yeah, exactly. Or maybe we'll ask Alex Lang, the guy that owns it now.
Alex won't have a clue.
Okay, this is interview with Alex Lang, take 2.
Take 2.
Because we had started, and then a gentleman pulled up, and he had a pickup truck full of jokes.
Mostly about West Virginia.
Yeah, mostly about West Virginia, exactly.
We can't really repeat them here.
Well, I think the one we could repeat, there was most harmless one was, what do you call a beautiful woman in West Virginia?
With a full set of teeth.
You with a full set of teeth.
A tourist.
A tourist, exactly. So anyways, Alex, what we're doing here is we're doing a podcast. Dave is pretty much regular on the old AML network. We even have a show just about him called Uncle Dave's Fireside Chats because Dave likes to talk. Have you ever noticed that about Dave?
You must be hard-pressed for content, but Dave will fill the airwaves.
Yeah, exactly. People love him.
Yeah, they do.
People love Dave. So
he's like a brother to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I hear that one more time this weekend. That started well with Ralphie Boy. So anyways, Alex, how long have you known Dave?
How long have I known Dave? I thought we were going to talk about this bed and breakfast, but all right, we'll start with Dave. We'll start with Dave. It's always about Dave.
Well,
so
this particular podcast, hang on. This particular podcast, this version of the podcast is called What's the Deal with Dave?
Okay, I understand now.
Right. It's because we're trying to figure out what's the deal with Dave.
Well.
Exactly. It's that hard, isn't it? So when did you first meet Dave?
I'm going to answer the question by not answering the question, and instead, I first heard about Dave.
Oh.
In about, or as Tom Davis would say, along about 2002. Sandy, who was the manager here back then, would say to me, Alex, do you know Dave Abeles? You need to meet Dave Abeles. And I'd say, why do I want to meet Dave? Oh, he's just like you. You should meet him. And I thought, I don't like the sound of this guy at all. And apparently, I later learned that Dave would hear the same thing. You should meet Alex Lang. You should meet Alex Lang. And he's like, what is he, Chinese?
So you two guys are basically separated at birth.
Yeah, I mean, his birthday is 2 weeks after mine. We are literally 2 weeks different in age.
Wow. So what's the deal with Alex then, maybe, is what we should be doing.
I have a therapist for that. We don't have to cover that here. So I first met Dave, I think it was 2003 or 2004, something like that, at the Tom had a winter gathering in every February when there was nobody here, and so he would have his buddies or business associates come in for the weekend, and he barely charged them anything, and they would generally drink too much beer and talk about trains. It was a good time. Old Timers Weekend. And so Dave shows up at Old Timers Weekend, and the rest is history. We hit it off right away.
Because you're both exactly the same.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Right.
He likes beer more than I do, but we both love Conrad. We both love photography and music and being philosophical and meeting people and traveling and so on. So
maybe we'll have to start a show called Uncle Alex's. I actually had an Uncle Alex. It was one of my favorites, so that could work.
Yeah.
So you guys have known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
I noticed somehow I'm in a room where I have my own door, but if either you or Dave want to go to the washroom in the middle of the night, you have to walk past my bed.
That didn't happen, though.
Somebody went past my bed at some point.
Yeah, that's true. That was about 9 in the morning, though, Lionel.
And I was sleeping.
You were sleeping.
That's what I do.
It didn't seem to disturb you, which is good, yeah.
Yeah. So you actually recently purchased the Station Inn, this is my first visit to the Station Inn, and it's like I can't describe it any other way other than it seems magical. If you're a rail fan, it seems magical because we're sitting on the front porch. Directly in front of us is the Norfolk Southern Main Line. Mm-hmm. From where does it run from?
There's a sign right there. Harrisburg is east of here.
Right, and Pittsburgh.
And Altoona is east of us, too, and then Pittsburgh is west. So the horseshoe curve is 15 minutes away from here.
Yeah, like 4 miles to the east.
Yep.
And it says, so that there's a tunnel that actually goes under this huge main line for passengers to get from one side of the tracks to the other and get on the platform.
Yep.
Because this at one point used to be a major passenger stop.
That's right.
So you've purchased the Station Inn in May of this year, May of 2022.
That is correct.
And why did you do that?
That's a good question.
That's why we're here.
That's why I have a therapist.
I have two.
Why did I?
Don't feel special.
Why did I purchase it? It was actually my wife's idea to purchase the Station Inn.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that conversation go?
She kept after me and said, and these conversations would happen. Heck, it's like the whole story. I've got to rewind back to the beginning. So
sure.
My wife has been fond of saying that when she and I first started dating, a normal guy would take her to meet his parents.
Right.
I took her to meet Tom Davis.
Oh, okay.
And so it wasn't all that far into the relationship that this became our regular weekend retreat from Pittsburgh. So we would come up here and have a weekend and go out to dinner and watch trains, get ice cream. It was a nice time.
You're right. A relaxing time.
A relaxing time.
And how old would you have been then when you met your wife?
32 or so.
Okay.
31, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would bring her here to stay for the weekend and you'd have a room and she'd have her own room.
Heck no. Come on. We were both married before, so.
Oh, okay. I'm just
we're too old for that kind of formality,
Oh, okay.
No, we,
right to the...
Cut to the chase. Pretty much. Amtrak is going to grace us here.
What date was it? What was your first date or what date number was it that you brought her? Like, how long had you known her?
Yeah.
Maybe a month or something?
I would say maybe 9 months.
Okay. And you brought her out here. When did she get to meet your parents?
Well, my mom had passed away, so they never got to meet each other.
Okay.
And that was very strange timing, but its own whole story. And so anyway, I think my dad would have been maybe after about a year.
Okay.
Hopefully he never listens to this, but I'd say
I think everybody listens to this.
He was like 3 to 6 months after the first Station Inn. But the thing is this is only an hour and a half from home, and where my dad is 4.5 hours from home. So there's
Where's your dad?
Allentown.
Okay,
where I grew up. Yep.
And how did you end up in Pittsburgh?
First wife was from Pittsburgh, so
okay.
I followed her out there.
And you worked for Carload Express for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, about 7 years.
And but you're not there anymore.
No.
What'd you do with Carload Express?
A lot. It was
because it owns a bunch of short lines.
Yes. So I was it was. What did I do there? So I did IT for them, computer.
Okay.
So things like putting in AEI scanners.
Right.
To keep track of where trains are. And
here comes the train. Here comes Amtrak.
Amtrak.
It's motoring. What is that doing? About 40 mile an hour, maybe?
Yeah, 45 maybe. Yeah.
I love that. This is so cool. I highly recommend to every AML listener that's out there to come by and stop at the Station Inn. How much does it cost to rent a room on a normal weekend?
Canadian dollars?
No. American dollars. I own a house in Florida. So
okay. All right.
I understand the whole...
That's good. It's always fluctuating.
I pay taxes in the United States, damn it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I pay heavy taxes in the United States.
All taxes are heavy taxes.
Yeah.
How much is it? It's depends on when you stay, which room you want.
All right.
We have some variable pricing in place now because it's all online.
Okay.
now.
If people wanted to find your the place Station Inn online, what would they type into the old Google?
Well, Station Inn Crescent is guaranteed
Boom.
to find it. Yep, Station Inn, INN. And the website is Station Inn PA, so stationINNPA.com.
Okay. And you said you redid your website?
We redid the website. An old buddy, Brad, did that for us, and it just launched a week ago. And we've been doing online bookings, and so the rooms start at around 140 a night.
Okay.
And go up from there. You know, if you want a bigger room or you're going to stay all weekend, the weekend prices are a little higher. But go on and check it out. If you're thinking of coming in September, that's a good time. We have a lot of availability, and we're probably going to do a September special of some sort coming up.
All right. Now, Dave's group, so how long have you been coming and doing this weekend?
This weekend, yeah, I'd say maybe 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been coming to the Station Inn since 94, October of 94.
So long before you met Dave.
Yes.
And how did you find it?
The same way Dave did. When Tom opened up, he placed ads in Rail Pace News magazine, which was the primary source of information about Northeastern railroading in the 90s.
Right.
There was no internet yet. And, you know, the national magazines didn't tell you how to get to a local hotspot. Rail Pace did. So every Rail Pace right there on the Keystone section of the news was Station Inn. Watch the trains from our front porch.
Wow.
And so Dave and I were here in the same month of the same year, not at the same time, and had the same reaction.
And you were 17 years old, too?
Something like that, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And are you a model railroader?
I am.
Okay.
That's also Dave's fault.
Is that also Dave's fault?
Yep.
What's the deal with Dave?
What is the deal with Dave? So actually, I did model railroading as a kid because I loved trains, and my dad did model airplane building. And I learned how to solder from my dad. I learned how to airbrush from my dad. I got a lot of, skills from my dad, which I'm grateful for. And so I did some serious modeling during high school, and then it kind of stopped in college, and I dabbled with N-Gauge a little bit when I was in my 20s and thought it was stupid, so I gave that up. And then...
you know what the problem with N-Gauge? It's like a bad Wi-Fi signal. It comes and goes. It cuts in and out.
And you spend a lot of money for this tiny little piece of plastic.
Exactly.
It just didn't make sense to me. So I had gotten a HO Lupa track when my kids were younger, and then I went to Dave Avely's house for the first time when his railroad was just still plywood and track.
Right.
And I thought,
holy
shit,
mackerel.
this is cool. You can do all this, and I'm a computer guy, so when I saw the signal system and all the DCC, I thought, yeah, this looks really fun. So I promptly went home and bought a DCC locomotive, and that's about 10 years ago, and never looked back.
Have you been building the layout since?
Yes. I had a temporary modular layout for a little while because we knew we were going to remodel the basement. So I wanted to get started, but nothing too permanent. And then when we remodeled the basement, we have a finished family room with it's a triple level layout. It's a shelf layout. It's on two walls of the family room. And then there's a closet on either end of it that houses a giant helix.
Oh, cool.
And so...
I bet that's really quite aesthetic.
Yes.
Kind of neat.
It looks
you come
like
into a finished family room, and then you probably have the front of the layout finished, and you try to get as much of to make it look and flow with the room.
Yes, it looks like furniture in the family room.
Is there any place on the internet people can see it? Do you have a Facebook page?
I do have a Facebook page. What is it called?
I'll ask you. You should know that.
Yeah. Well, so Dave is very social and community oriented with his, and I'm kind of a loner. I spend a lot of time with people, and
I thought you were just like Dave.
Well, this is a difference, and I think part of it is because my layout's still fairly young.
Right.
But
okay.
yeah, I spend a lot of time with people at work and here at the B&B, and so layout time for me is alone time.
Right.
But I do have some buddies that'll come over and have an operating session every once in a while, and that's a lot of fun.
Do you have pictures of it on Facebook?
Yes. So it's Conrail Lehigh Line.
Conrail Lehigh Line.
Yep.
Yeah, because you guys are modeling basically the same time.
Yep.
In different areas.
That's right.
Conrail is actually kind of a cool railroad to model nowadays because It's gone. It wasn't gone that long, but it was had a major impact. Had a lot of cool equipment. Conrail's a cool one to model.
I agree. But my viewpoint on why it's cool to model is probably a little more cynical than that. It's the railroad that was what inspired all of us Gen Xers to like trains.
Right.
And now all the Gen Xers are in their middle age and have disposable income, and so the model railroad manufacturers recognize that and make Conrail stuff to model.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it's great because there's lots of great Conrail stuff out there to buy.
I noticed today when we were out rail fanning, I mean, there still was a ton of Conrail hoppers going by.
Yes.
Which I thought was cool.
Hollidaysburg bathtub hoppers built in 1997.
Hollidaysburg bathtub hoppers built in 1997. Look at you with all your knowledge. And you were operating your drone.
Yep.
Which was kind of cool.
Yep.
I noticed you haven't been constantly changing your T-shirt. And I applaud you for that because I find that to be a little bit odd.
It is a little odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself. Like several guys with 4 different shirts on in the course of the day.
I saw Schmieder and Ralph Heiss last night. Between the two of them, they made like 9 T-shirt changes in an hour.
But the good thing is that half the T-shirts I've seen are Station Inn themed, so at least they're appropriate. There's no Tunnel In shirts here.
Tunnel In?
Tunnel In. So the Tunnel In, it's a...
Let's not talk about it. Is it another place?
It's a competitor, shall we say.
Let's not talk about it.
No. But it has air conditioning, and we don't have air conditioning. So if you want air conditioning, you should go to the Tunnel Inn.
Yeah. Okay. But you don't have it on purpose.
No.
You know what? I bet you that, that Volkswagen over there, the Volkswagen Beetle?
Yes.
I'd say circa 1970-ish.
Yes, I agree.
I bet you that belongs to Heath.
You would be correct.
Yeah. It just seems like kind of a Heath thing.
Heath is amazing.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a modern-day monk of sorts.
A modern-day monk? Mm-hmm. Wow. All right, so let's quickly wrap up here.
Oh, okay.
There he is. Look at that. We didn't even know he was behind us.
How did we know?
Let's quickly wrap up here. So are you excited now? You've had the thing. You've owned the thing for like 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Is it as much fun as you thought it would be?
It's a lot of fun. It's also terrifying.
Okay.
If you think about it, it feels like having a new baby or buying a used boat or something. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's a lot of fun that comes from it. It's a two-way street. But there's a lot that we want to do to the place. I think it's already got the energy that it used to have, say, 5 or 10 years ago, and a warmth has come back to it. That feels really great to see the community come around the place and sort of see the energy around, people who are like people I've never met. Oh, I'm so happy to hear you got the place, and I'm like, I'm okay, thanks. It's nice of you, but I don't know me. How do you know me? But the support that we've gotten has been wonderful, and I think it can only get better from here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like you're encouraged about the whole thing, and I'm hoping that it's nothing but a rousing success. Because, I've known Dave since the early '60s, and he only finally invited me this year. I don't know what the deal with Dave is.
No, me neither. Me neither.
All right, well that's cool. So it's stationinpa.com. Go there. And I absolutely highly recommend it because you will not be one more question.
Oh, yes.
Can I ask one more question?
You just did.
That's true.
You can have another one, though.
What's the deal with Aunt Pat?
Aunt Pat is awesome. Aunt Pat. How do I answer that question? So Aunt Pat is our innkeeper.
Okay.
That is a good question. I'm glad you asked it. So Aunt Pat is the innkeeper.
So hang on. Has some of the questions not been that good?
They're great questions.
Okay.
But there's a lot of questions to ask, and so...
You just seem to think that one was particularly good.
Well,
so I was concerned that maybe you thought some of the others were kind of time wasters.
The thing is, no, not at all. I think it's all interesting. I love the story of the place.
Right.
And so there's an eastbound going to make some noise here.
We hear a train coming.
Which is great.
It's coming around the bend.
Actually, it's on a straight tangent track, but that's not as interesting.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, right. Johnny Cash is good. So, Aunt Pat, what was I going to say?
Yeah, Aunt Pat is fantastic.
Aunt Pat is fantastic. So Aunt Pat kind of came into the picture as the deal was coming together, and she said, I could move up and run the place because my wife and I have full-time day jobs and kids in school in Pittsburgh, so we were in no position to consider moving here.
And Aunt Pat's single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so...
So is Aunt Pat happy?
I think Aunt Pat's happy now.
Perfect. Man, we can barely hear ourselves because of this one.
What? Yeah.
This one's working. This one is working.
I think this is 12G.
We can only assume that these hoppers are absolutely loaded.
Yeah, I think they're soybeans.
Soybeans headed east
Yep.
to Harrisburg.
Yep.
Points.
That's right. I think this is 12G. Is this 12G, Josh? 12G. I was right.
This is
12G.
train 12G. Have you thought of, will you, as the years go by, try to make it more obvious to people what's happening, what's going by, stuff like that?
Well, about a month ago, I put this radio speaker system up on the front porch so that you don't need a scanner or a
that's yours.
smartphone to listen.
Ah.
I put that in, and that's been very popular. I like using it. And then we brought back an old tradition that had fallen by the wayside, which is to have a train schedule printed out and laminated so that people who are not familiar with the area can get some idea what the trains are. But as soon as I printed them, they're outdated. So I've got to do another run of them after the next round of schedule updates comes out.
Last question, another question. So we never really finished the story of it. Was your wife that was the motivator behind you guys buying this?
Yeah. Well, so we had been coming here for 5-6 years.
Right. Staying in separate rooms.
And staying in the same room, definitely. And, we got along with Tom. So I did Tom's website starting in about 2001. Right. So that was how I got to know Tom. And so, as we got to know each other, like Tom definitely liked Leah and Leah liked Tom. We all got along great. The three of us would go out to dinner and hang out, have a couple of drinks, this and that. And so we eventually invited Tom to come out to our house for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. And so Tom spent a lot of holidays with us. Oh, Union Pacific hoppers. That's pretty cool.
What kind of hoppers?
Union Pacific. This is not something you normally see.
No.
Green UP hoppers.
Green UP hoppers going by.
That's pretty strange.
You see it all here at the Station Inn.
You do see it all.
If you stay here long enough at the Station Inn, you'll see it all. We even saw a caboose earlier.
Department of Defense caboose. That's right. So how do I get to the point? So my wife and I were coming here and so on and so forth. And when she was a kid, her grandparents owned a place similar to this, north of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so it had a bar, it had a restaurant, it had a couple of rooms for rent. And so she remembered how well regarded the family was in the community and the people who loved going there. And so she was familiar with this kind of a place. And I think this reminded her of that to a degree. And she saw what this place was for our community. And so here comes some mid-train helpers.
Mid-train helpers coming by. They're making a noise, too.
Noisy neighbors here.
Wow, this is
cool. You don't come up here for a peaceful rest.
Exactly. There was stuff going on last. There was stuff going. There was stuff going on last night at like 2:30. I almost got up and came down to the front porch just so I could watch. All right. So, anyways.
So
your wife was used to it because her parents had a place.
Yep. So
4-pack of 670U.
Now we have a pair of Amtrak material handling cars.
Oh, look at that. We got everything on this train.
Originally, those were Southern Pacific box cars, which I only know because Rapido made those cars.
Rapido? There was a couple of Rapido cars going by. Jason Schron's on the roof of one of them.
Yeah, what's the deal with Jason Schron?
Yeah, what's the deal with Jason Schron?
Actually, I want to meet Jason Schron. I think that would be fun.
Jason's a great guy. You'd enjoy him. Jason helps me every year, along with several others, but every year he helps me. I raise money for my my local hospital to help me with cancer.
Oh.
And Jason makes a very very generous donation.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah, he seems like a good dude. All right, so
we're going to finish this up before the final.
Tom Davis had a stroke in about 2017, and that's when things started to go downhill slowly. And so that was about when my wife said, we need to buy the place. Like, we need to make sure that this place can continue on.
Right.
And so I was too shy to bring it up. Tom and I have been friends for years, and I don't want to cross the business and the pleasure.
Right. And you didn't want to be like, because he'd had a stroke, you don't want to.
Yeah, I didn't want to be like up in his. Oh, you're going to die soon. Like, who does that? Nobody does that. And so, eventually, we got the idea to just write a letter to him and say, we really think this is an important place. We want to see it continue. We'd like to help do that. What do we do? And
Right.
so that didn't get very far until, by the time that Tom unfortunately passed away, almost a year ago at this point.
And then I
And
understand
so-
Dave was on the selection committee to help Joe decide who was going to buy it.
Yep. So Tom's brother Joe is managing the estate, and we met Joe, and yeah, that was not an easy process to go through the selection, and we had to put together a detailed financial proposal and a pitch deck, and it was as though you were going to a panel of investors to try to raise investment funds or something like that.
Because everybody was concerned about the future of the station inn.
That's right. That's right.
And now here you are.
Here we are.
You and I have never met except yesterday and today.
Well, I've listened to you a few times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like your podcast, even though you do interview Dave a lot, but I still like your podcast.
Have you ever noticed when you're listening to the podcast and Dave's on, do you go, what's the deal with Dave?
No, I'm used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I put it on sometimes to fall asleep.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, when Dave starts talking about community and full circle and stuff like that, I just nod off.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I do the same thing with other podcasts. That's really cool, Alex. So we're going to continue this on. We will interview you other times.
Okay.
And we will have a continuing saga of the Alex Lang story.
Sounds good.
And we're going to stop now because here comes some helpers on the back of this train. Say goodbye, Alex.
All right, goodbye, Alex.
Okay. Well, that went pretty good. What'd you think, Rich?
Yeah, so it was fine. I didn't feel particularly witty, but
Well, yeah. Well, you weren't on any of those interviews. Your interview comes up in 2 weeks.
oh, and
Yeah, that's right. The recording button has been pushed, and now this is the end of the show. Wake up, Rich.
the
It was the
Bernard.
chicken. He's loopy on the fried chicken.
Well, I didn't even finish telling you the story about Bernard Helen.
Yeah, this is the one that came out last week, right? With the duct tape on his.
Oh, was that one? Was that last week? Did I miss
Yeah,
a week?
it's already been
Well, yeah, that was on the fans.
Bernard posted pictures of it in the bridge on the
That's right. That was on the fans. It wasn't on viewer mail.
Yeah.
Right. Good thing you're keeping notes.
Well, I do listen to everyone.
I know you do. Do you usually listen to them on the train on the way to work?
Sometimes. Yep.
Or sometimes in the car or wherever?
Yeah, right. Like today I drove, so I was listening in the car.
So what would determine whether you drove or rode on the train?
Well, today I wanted to go to take pictures of the moonrise right at, it was because of daylight time ending. It gets dark so early, and the moonrise was at around 5 o'clock. So I wanted to get to a spot that I couldn't easily get to from the train.
Oh, okay.
And so I drove in, had my camera gear with me.
So the moon rises at 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Well, it varies throughout the whole month, right? There's a 28-day cycle.
Right. At 5 o'clock, but wouldn't you? So you would have to leave the office early, wouldn't you, to get it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Sure. Well, I mean, I drove in today. I was in the office at 6:45.
You want me to try again, Bruce?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, Rich. So the moon rises like like you're leaving the office at 5 o'clock just before 5 in the afternoon to catch the moonrise. So
it would have been 6 o'clock if it was still daylight time.
I thought he was doing it in the morning. Oh, he was doing it.
Moonrise.
Oh, okay.
And it's time of the full moon. So
how do you get out of work so early? How do you get out of work so
full
early?
moon rise is approximately the same time as sunset.
Oh, see, now that was me screwing up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not unusual.
Well, your track record is unblemished.
Right, tomorrow. So the eclipse that's coming up is occurring as the moon is setting.
Okay.
Yes.
Which will be first thing in the morning.
I'm an idiot. Really, basically, I'm an idiot.
Don't know why you would say that.
Because I kept thinking moonrise. I was thinking you were doing it at 5 in the a.m. And then I was trying to go for a joke about you get up at 5 a.m. and I completely screwed it up.
Right, but
yeah, because
2
we
weeks
get,
from now,
we get a lot of moonlight during the daylight hours. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Approximately 2 weeks from now, the moon will be rising around 5 a.m. or
That's
6
true.
a.m. All right, it goes through in 28 days. It goes through the whole 24-hour cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I never really paid a lot of attention to it until I started taking the pictures.
You'll be on the show more and more as the years go by, Rich, and it's probably best for yourself just to not try.
Can we make Richard the official AML science advisor?
Wow, he could be the science advisor as well. I mean, he's already the whiz.
I'm not a scientist, but okay.
Well, we haven't done it yet. We haven't done it yet. It's still in discussion, Rich. It's still in discussion. We haven't done it yet. Mostly we're concentrating on right now on trying to figure out why I'm such an idiot. But man, when Jason hears it, maybe it will only be sponsored for one show by Rapido Trains.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Exactly. There you go. We're going to have to record that like we recorded the another Lincoln Homer. All right. So anyways, we listened to... in that particular show, the first part one of What's the Deal with Dave, we listened to Ben Ableys, which is Dave's younger brother. Is that correct?
Correct.
We listened to Heath Hoffmeister, who is an unbelievably fascinating guy. I mean, he is just like, I could sit and talk to Heath for hours and hours and hours. He's just one of these guys you can't not talk to. Alex Lang, who is now the proud owner of the Station Inn, and you can find out more about it at stationinpa.com. And we talked to Joe Davis, the brother of the original owner, Tom Davis. His son, Matt, is a great guy. I spent some time talking to him. And Josh Hollins, who is the Vancouver Canucks fan and a air traffic controller. Which interview was your favorite, Rich?
I have to say Josh.
Oh, there you go. Nice call.
Yeah, he's just so interesting.
He is an interesting guy.
And, I mean, Heath would naturally get a lot of votes as well, right? Because Heath is very interesting. But I know Heath. Josh, I only see him once a year. So
you're saying Heath isn't as interesting?
Well, I think
I know Heath is not really interesting.
I thought he was saying more like, I know Heath. He's boring.
No.
That's the way I'm looking at it, yeah.
No. But Heath and I have had plenty of conversations over the years. So for me, it wasn't as unique, let's say, as I might get to talk to Josh.
All right. On this next show, which is in 2 weeks from now, I think we need to speak about the sleeping arrangements. I found those to be a little unnerving. My personal sleeping arrangements, I found them to be a bit unnerving. So we should probably bring that up. Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, our email address. If you want to send us an email, use our email address. It is modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L. Modelerslife@gmail.com.
And we have a website. If you go to a modelerslife.com and you scroll down a little bit, you'll find a picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state. And all you have to do is click on that picture and boom, the email address is already filled in for you. And you are ready to go.
Exactly.
And when you send that email, don't be afraid to mention Rapido Trains. And you can find them at rapidotrains.com.
Yes.
What else?
Can I say, as a proud owner of some Rapido products, they are outstanding products.
They are outstanding products. They are. I think I see this as a almost like a badge of honor that Rapido Trains picked us, our podcast, to be the official exclusive, sole exclusive sponsor.
Absolutely an honor.
Yeah, it really is an honor. It's kind of like a feather in our cap almost.
Congratulations.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you. People probably, I think we're going to be able to work this in. I think as the time goes by, I'll get better at working this in. Jason's a great guy. I always liked Rapido Trains anyways, and it works out perfect for everybody. And if you want to see,
Jason,
go ahead.
No, so go ahead.
No, I insist. You go.
Okay, I was going to say, and Jason so far is the only guy that we've done an interview walking around in the woods near his cottage in Manitoba swatting mosquitoes.
That's true. And he wanted to do that again, and I said no. That was once is enough. An interview of swatting mosquitoes is once is enough. RapidoTrains.com. Go there and buy stuff. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you to buy something from Rapido Trains. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And if you like this podcast and you feel like you can't get enough AML podcasts and you want more, all you have
There's more?
There's more. All you got to do on our website, if you click on the Patreon link, and it'll take you to our Patreon page, and for just 16 cents, 365 easy payments of 16 cents a day. You can have twice as much podcasting every week.
Wow.
And on the paid channel, there's shows like Uncle Dave's Fireside Chat, where we continue to try to figure out what the deal with Dave is. Uncle Dave. And we have our viewer mail, and we have the fans of the AML show with all the guys, and other stuff. Chris Wayman, we had a show with Chris Wayman, who made like a gazillion Green Frog videos. There's all kinds of interesting stuff on that. Is there anything else we got to talk about?
Hey, how about if a guy wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog in it?
Oh, yeah.
Get that?
He said, Rich, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I would relish the thought of a hot dog T-shirt.
Oh,
nice. Do
you want me to keep going? I think I'm on a roll.
Yeah,
but don't get relish on your Rapido Trains T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. I like that. So if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, and you scroll across the navigation bar and click on AML, boom, boom. You're in a wonderland of hats, hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, anything you could possibly want that has the AML network on it. Now I think we're done.
Yes.
And for God's sakes, please go to rapidotrains.com and at least look at their website.
Yep.
At the very least, look at their website.
Now, here's an interesting thing about Rapido. You can order from their website, but they prefer you go through your local Rapido distributor to support them.
Yes, we had a great conversation about that, about how they very strongly support their retail vendors. Yes. They're all about supporting the retail vendor, which is pretty cool, and making great products, and expanding across the globe with model railroad products. All right, I think that's it. Are you ready, Rich?
I'm ready.
So remember, A Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
Crescent Rail fans.
And now it's time for the New Jersey Transit Elevator Escalator Report. Take it away, Dave.
Good morning, everybody. Today, number one here on the list is Newark Penn Station number 14. That one needs a step chain adjustment. They got to adjust the lower carriage assembly. Newark Penn Station number 8 is back in service. Secaucus 16 was out overnight for a skirt panel reset, but he's back in service too. Somerville eastbound is still out for its DCA test. We had a sump pump problem, so they should be back on that later this week. And Absecon, the lone elevator there, was out overnight. Somebody held the doors open too long, and it's back in service as of this morning.
It's another Lincoln Homer.